Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Gareth Presch, founder of the World Health Innovation Summit. Delighted to welcome you to our webinar on Arts for SDGs. And I'm going to hand you over to our host, Isabel Voxmuth from World Health Organization, who's going to introduce our speakers today. If you have any questions, do add them to the chat and we'll put it to our panelists. And I do hope that you enjoy this session. Isabel, over to you.
Thank you so much, Gareth, for the introduction, and I am very happy to see all of you today for this fantastic session, on art impact for health. And today we will try to explore, in fact, together different specific area related to, the advancement of research related to art impact for health. And for that, I will engage each of you, each speaker, to reflect about, how their current art initiative, art programs they are leading, have impact, in fact, what they are doing, what type of activity they have planned, and as well the impact on their targeted beneficiaries. So we will learn more about that. And during this session, it will be good to know more about what type as well of assessment, method, but as well what type of assessment reporting have been explored by yourself, and by your initiative. And finally, we will see with you how you can see the contribution of your art initiative to what we have set up, on the Global Alliance for Social Prescribing. What does it mean, and how you can imagine your initiative can be linked to the area of social prescribing, and all the other relevant method or evidence you have already in your hand, and specifically focus on the psychological and physiological outcome you have on patient, will be very interesting to know, and for that, I give you now the floor to yours, and to hear from your experience and what you have done. We will start, in fact, this webinar with Judith, and I give you the floor, Judith. You can present yourself. It will be better if you do it by yourself. And as well, what are the key elements you can share with us related to the area we are looking together today. Thank you, Judith.
Thank you, Isabel. Hello, everyone. It's a delight to be with you all. I've been working in the field of art for social change for about 25 years. A professional artist before that, a professional dancer, and still a choreographer. And last time, in the last webinar, I spoke in the abstract about the impacts of arts-based interventions, arts-based practices. And today, what I'd like to do is speak a little bit more concretely to give some examples of the work we've been doing over the last 25 years or so, and hopefully this will provide some insight into how some of this work, arts-infused work, can actually change people's perspectives, give them energy, give them hope, and create dialogue in ways that perhaps just speaking with each other can't do. I'm old. I'm 74, and I come from an activist family, and was in sort of the high end of professional arts for many years, and then went back to my roots, simply because I was still interested in social change and in having different kinds of impact in the world. I was very influenced early on in around 1995 by a colleague who worked with the methodologies of Augusto Boal, a theater practitioner, a director, who believed that people are the experts of their own lives, and in using the arts can surface and share and create dialogue through art making. And so I got very involved in call Art for Social Change. And I just want to provide a quick definition of how we describe this work. So Art for Social Change is art made collectively by people who may not self-identify as artists themselves about what matters to them. This process facilitated by a specially trained professional artist. The first work that I did in this field turned out to be a 20-year project. Found myself in a mall and started listening to the conversations of teenagers. Found myself again in a high school where the conversations were very, very different from what I would ordinarily have experienced. I had an about-to-be teenage daughter, and as a mom and also as an artist, I was very interested in exploring what was behind the communications that I was hearing, very much unlike the conversations, the expressions of my own high school experience. That led to 20 years of work on 3, 6-year, 7-year projects with teenagers, 15 to 18-year-olds, the Ice, Fire, and Earth projects. Ice looked at teen suicide, not a light place to start working in this area, but it involved 3 years, 4 years of work with teenagers using arts-based methodologies, bringing in people who worked in various disciplines, encouraging people to express themselves about what mattered to them. After the first session, the topic of suicide had come up. It's the second leading cause of death for young people in Canada, and the stats around the world are very high, especially now where mental health is a huge issue for many as a consequence of coping with the pandemic. So out of those workshops, we took the information that we had and we created a multimedia production that took place in the atrium of a huge shopping mall. People were lined up around the block, and we worked with professional advisors, with the youth advisory. Then the production went on tour. We toured Canada. We created an hour-long network television program on our public television in Canada. We made a 20-minute version for use in classrooms. So it was a multifaceted project. And what we discovered was that the simple fact of being with other people in an audience, looking at and experiencing the true voices of young people about their perspectives, not adults' perspective, but their perspectives on suicide and what led to it, really opened up people to communicate with each other and to begin to explore the determinants of why suicide was such a huge issue in the communities we visited on tour. That led to another project, the Fire Project, another 6-7-year project, which looked at how youth experience violence in their lives, and a third project, which was called Earth, wherein people looked at issues of the environment and social justice. That 20 years of work really led me to thinking about the social determinants of health and how we can't separate health out from the social determinants that condition how we live in the world, how we experience the world, and how we react to the realities of our lives. At the moment, we're working with environmental organizations across Canada on a mentorship program which pairs older artists, more experienced community engaged artists with young people who are burgeoning artists or less experienced ones in 6-month projects where we pair them with environmental organizations to do 6-month collaborative projects. And you may wonder, why is environment a focus here when we're talking about health? Well, let's go back to social determinants of health and realize that none of these issues can be separated from each other. We're finding a huge amount of social anxiety around environmental issues. We also experience people telling us about how lonely they feel during the pandemic. We see economic inequality simply because, you know, in some families they can't because there's one computer. So we're seeing sort of the social context for health issues that are becoming very serious. To that effect, now we're organizing and have organized a national network of Art for Social Change organizations. There's some 400 of them across the country, people doing work in community with people to create different forms of art collectively and then to create dialogue. If an individual can't express themselves, they become sick. If communities can't express themselves, they become ill. And in our consumer-driven society, we often consume art rather than making it ourselves. Art making is one of the most potent ways for self-realization, and collective art making allows us to reduce a sense of loneliness and create hope and dialogue. I think that's all I want to say this morning, and look forward to the conversation to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Judith, and you have so well expressed, you know, the importance to consider all the social determinants of health, and specifically, you know, that reinforce the fact we need to consider not just a medical prescription, but as well social support, you know, specifically to address this issue of loneliness, as you have very well explained, and anxiety. And I think it's very important to consider this focus in the approach of the benefits of art. And thank you again for this experience you have shared with us. And now I will give the floor to Kim, you know, and Ele to explain to us, you know, as well their experience. Thank you so much to be with us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. We're so excited to be part of this network because I think it's a very powerful format to share ideas and to imagine what we can do together. Gareth has kindly agreed to share my screen. There he goes. And I just quickly pulled some slides together and like Judith, last time I shared a little bit about the lockdown campaign and how we've used art as healing over the period of the lockdown, and I just thought that maybe I'll just introduce once again just a very specific example, which I think speaks to the theme of today. So I'm not sure if you can see the slides, but the first image, I don't know, Gareth, do you get the? Can you get the put the slide on? The first image I think is a reminder of, I presented the last time a little bit about Artist Proof Studio, the community arts center I co-founded 30 years ago, that works on different campaigns for various issues. This one was on gender-based violence, and we ran a lockdown project over lockdown to try and give support to some of the students who really didn't have access to the studio, to resources. And there were three themes we talked about: their responses to COVID, their responses to gender-based violence. But I don't think you can see the slides at all. But the one image that I wanted to show was one of the students. Gareth, can you see the slides? I can't see the slides there. Okay, there it is. This young artist. There was an artist called, maybe go to the next slide. These three portfolios were used to start, no, the next one again, to start a campaign to support. Oh, we've lost them again. Shame. I'm not the only one having trouble with my slides. But we started a campaign to support artists during the lockdown that really didn't have any resources. And the campaign gave small grants to visual artists, and which was called the Vulnerable Artists Fund. And Gareth, if you can go back to the slides, because it's blank at the moment, or on my screen. There's a young artist called Lungile Mbele, who's a third-year student at Artist Proof Studio. Gareth, are you able to get my slides back, or shall I try and share screens? Yes, thank you. And can you go down to that exactly? That's fine. You can stay there. And he, this young artist, during the hard lockdown, had witnessed his mother had basically had died as a result of 20 years of domestic abuse by his father, and he was left with his father and his younger brother. It was a terrible situation because they were locked at home. And after that hard lockdown, we generated a different portfolio. If you can go to the next slide, where William Kentridge gave us a artwork called "Oh, to Believe in Another World," which was a work that somehow was about our imaginings. It could be a dream for a post-COVID recovery, and start to think about our future. And we invited artists from all over the country and students from all over the country to write something, to give an artwork, and to apply for a bursary to support their funding. I don't know in South Africa if you heard this. There was a great shame in the looting of state resources, as well as physical looting that happened in the winter months of July. And for many artists, the National Arts Council actually lost 300 million rand, which was due to be given as support to artists of all kinds, and they lost their funding because of this corruption and mismanagement. And so we started another artist campaign called "Oh, to Believe in Another World." And if you go to the next slide, we invited artists to submit work, and the same artist, Lungile, submitted this work, which I thought was quite poignant for today's theme, because he talks about during the, since the pandemic and since the loss of his mother, he spends time in his garden, and it's become and developed this relationship with his plants, particularly healing plants. And his plant, the aloe in this artwork, is teaching him certain things about survival, which has helped him to become more connected to nature, to conserving and cultivating the plants. And he says, I believe this becomes my story of finding inner peace and finding healing through nature. I'm able to eliminate diseases through these plants, conserve them, and teach others about them. And I thought that was very symbolic and significant. And the next image, if you don't mind, Gareth, to go to the next image, again is another image that is a young woman whose father basically shot himself in front of the whole family. And this image is also about depicts a mother embracing and protecting her children from the ravages of around her. And she balances the uncertainty with the safety of holding. And this next slide, Oh, to Believe in Another World, one young artist said, I put my dreams into my pocket like a set of keys waiting for the time to come where I can unlock and open the door. And I thought that was incredibly poignant in terms of hope. And so for the next slide, we are proposing a working group for next year that can help put together an exhibition. And maybe the next slide, Gareth, is about really looking at what can we do together as a network, a group of collaborators in art therapy and arts for social action that brings together academic and visual research and publish and actually have a group exhibition. And the next slide, we've actually proposed, put in a proposal for next year, June, to have an exhibition and a conference that maybe can include members of this team, and initiate possibly an art therapy journal to publish articles. And so this introduces Haley's presentation, which maybe talks to our very new qualification of art therapy and going forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to the discussion.
The floor is yours, Haley.
Oh, I was mute, sorry. Really lovely to be back and lovely to see you all. I'm going to try and share my screen, and let's see. Sorry, let's see. Don't think I'm managing. Let's see. Can you see anything?
No.
No.
You need to click on share. You can see an icons. No? Share.
Yes, I did do the share, and let me try again. So it says sharing, share screen, maybe the window. Okay, is that, can you see?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
You can see your screen.
Good. Okay, so as Kim was saying, and I think also just following from Judith, I mean, maybe just a brief synopsis. I'm an art psychotherapist and currently work in the UK at University of Hertfordshire. but started an organization about 28 years ago, Lefika Lapodiso in South Africa, after studying as an art therapist and coming back to a country that was traumatized and still is for very different reasons. And really looking at the deficit of mental health in the country and wondering how to best respond. And the way that it started was directly working with traumatized communities and then realizing actually we need to train more people who can deliver the work in under-resourced areas. So started a community art counseling training, which was essentially an art therapy training, but with people who didn't have undergraduate degrees and could really train and explore what it's like to work with creativity and in groups and work on themselves and be in their own therapeutic journey and process and be supervised and apply their practice in different areas with children and adults under supervision, and then set up projects in the places they were living and working. And that project has developed and is still thriving with a different director. And that was the first non-formal art therapy training in Africa, really. And since then, so I really want to look at a two-pronged approach to looking at sustainable ways of using art in impacting mental health. And one is coming from an art therapy perspective of formal education within universities, but also importantly in non-formal educations to be able to reach people that may not have access to training and services. So excitedly, which is what Kim mentioned, is the Masters in Art Therapy has just been approved at the University of Johannesburg, which will be the first art therapy training in Africa. And a lot of the students that have come to the art therapy master's program started at Lefika Lapodiso and did their community art counseling training. So there's a wonderful sort of grounding and heritage, and hopefully they'll go on to make extraordinary trainers, which is also part of the training. So there's really something about the credibility of the profession and the registration with the Health Professions Council in South Africa, which is an enormous achievement. And I think parallel to that is just going back to Lefika's work, and this text is very small. I was just given it very, like today, of an online training that Lefika Lapodiso is now offering for arts-based practitioners, mental health workers, social workers, teachers, facilitators. And that's going to be, the basis is going to be an 8-module training, which I developed as part of the Lefika training for trainers. And it really sort of looks at the psychosocial application of the arts and the importance of group work. So I think what the training itself is experiential, and the model of working is really about the group that we create is the group that gets replicated in different environments. So really with a focus on intersectionality, social justice, group work, and that sense of cohesion and belonging that comes with, I think Judith was talking about collective art making, collective thinking, collective sharing. And, you know, as a training group analyst as well, I'm very interested in the idea that there's no such thing as an individual, and that we have to be looking socially also as sort of what the social determinants of health are, and be looking at the individual and the social and the political side by side always. And art is a very important and powerful way of engaging. And part of what Lafika does is also the volunteer training, which again models an idea of how to be in relation to one another, how to be in an organization, and then how to take that into working with others. So really sort of the development of our own practice and self-consciousness is really important to be able to be ethical and mindful in our work with others. This is a series of books based on the model of training. And I just wanted to end, just recently I was talking to a colleague in Chile, in Santiago, and just during the social revolution, I was there facilitating social dreaming. And in the day, working with university staff and students, working in social dreaming matrices, making images, there was performance, poetry, really sort of revealing what was going on a social unconscious level. And then in the afternoon, being in the midst of the protests where there was this extraordinary graffiti and people banging their pots and pans and making music and dancing. And the most extraordinary outcome is there's now, as you know, the woman that is leading the writing of the new constitution following the revolution is an indigenous woman who is, it's the first time in Chilean history, I think, that there is a woman, and that the revolution, I think, came about through creativity. So again, it's kind of the activism, the creativity, and the training that I think will take us into looking at, I think, in the conversations about social prescribing and just how we start to engage in the arts as a transformational tool, and methods and ways of practicing are immense and vast. So I've probably gone over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hele. And now I would like to give the floor to David, following by Tail. And thank you so much, the both of you, to be with us today. And the floor is yours, and we are looking forward to hear from your experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and hi everyone. It's my first time here, and it's great to hear. I mean, understandably, that across countries and cultures, how universal the impact of arts is, and arts on health work. So I think Gareth is going to share my slides. So to introduce me, I'm the Creativity and Health Programme Manager for Calderdale, which is a borough within West Yorkshire and Harrogate in the UK, and we are one of 4 creativity and health hubs nationally in the UK. We've recently seen the establishment of the National Centre for Creative Health in the UK. Could you, next slide, please, Gareth? So our project comes off the back of the establishment of the National Centre for Creative Health and the All-Party Parliamentary Group paper into creativity and health. It's a partnership between our local NHS Secondary Mental Health Care Trust, our Clinical Commissioning Group, a local authority, and the Arts Council of England. Next slide, please. So we have this really simple title, which is Living a Larger Life and Everybody Achieving Their Potential, and our vision is on the next slide. Thanks. I'm going to go through these really quickly. That arts, culture and creativity are embraced by our citizens in their everyday lives and incorporated into health sector approaches, resulting in longer lives, better lived and stronger, more connected communities. And the next slide, please. So this is the cover of the report that I mentioned, and the project that I'm working on, and I started in post almost exactly a year ago, last September, and I'd previously worked in the arts sector for 17 years in the theatre sector. So I've been in the health sector for 1 year, and the project was established on the back of this amazing report, which categorises all of the evidence from a UK base on the impacts of arts and health. And we're at a really interesting point in time in the UK, because actually the most recent research bid we're submitting is acknowledging that they don't need to see more evidence of that impact. It's a bid around how do we scale up that work. So what we have is some really exciting work that's working at a kind of place-based level with a small number of people. But actually, even though the evidence for impact is there, arts and health and creativity in health is still an area that's underinvested, it's underutilized, and it's not understood. Like, the evidence is there, but the context for that evidence, so what works for who at what time, is not there. So we're now at the point of how do we scale that up over a larger area, nationally, internationally, and how do we make that sustainable? How do we drive investment? Next slide, please, Gareth. So this will be too small for you to see, but I just flagged up a bit. So this is the infographic of that evidence. So it shows things like, after engaging with participatory arts programs, 80% of people ate more healthily, 80% of people engaged in more physical activity, and over 80% had a greater well-being. And that an arts on prescription service led to a 37% reduction in GP visits, a 27% reduction in hospital admissions, saving over £200 per patient. If you could go to the next slide, please, Gareth. So the first part, so we started our project for 1 year with 60,000 of health system investment and 30,000 of additional investment from the Arts Council. And in that first 12 months, we've put focus on how do we scale that work up, how do we make it sustainable, and how do we drive more investment. I think we're over about £500,000 now generated in that first year for taking the work, innovating it at small scale, and then looking at scaling it up. And if you could go to the next slide, Gareth, I'll have this as my last slide. So these are the 4 tiers of our work before I hand over to Debs, and I'll just give you some examples of the projects that we've been doing that have driven that investment and that we're looking at scaling up across our region and across the country. So looking at arts as a tool for system change. So we're working with, one example of this is we're working with hospital trusts and using theatre making and storytelling as a form of advocacy for patients or staff, in a way that can lead to changes in what the hospital looks like, how its services work, what appointment letters look like, for example. Sorry, Gareth, the slide's gone on my screen. I should know these 4 tiers off by heart, I just don't know what order they come in. So creativity and population health. An example of a project in that field is we're developing a creativity app that will work for anybody. It's based on the Couch to 5K app, which is you start from nothing and it gives you a daily task or every couple of days, and by the end of it you can run 5K. And this is a similar thing that would work with social prescribers in clinical settings or just for the general public. An app that they can learn drawing, dance and movement, anything like that, and we can monitor the impact of that on population health. Linking the 2 sectors is around making sure the arts sector and the health sector can work well together, and that there's sharing, there's a kind of shared language that's developed, but there's also sharing of resources, and there's a sustainable arts sector that has solid investment from the health sector. And then at the heart of all this, it's our kind of targeted interventions, which work mainly in areas where people are experiencing the greatest health inequalities. So, for example, we've got a project looking at encouraging more people with severe mental illness to attend health checks, and then what does that health check mean afterwards? And all those projects are co-produced with people with lived experience and artists. Or we're running a version of the Lullaby project, which started in New York with our perinatal mental health service, and that's about pairing up families who are suffering or at risk of postnatal depression with professional musicians, and they write personalised lullabies for their child. That reduces the symptoms of postnatal depression and increases parent and child bonding. We work in association with lots of partners, including the National Association of Primary Care, who are assessing the impact of some of our work and how it links to social prescribing. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Deb. So Gareth, you can stop sharing now and bring Deb's up, and Deb's has got a few things to fill you in on. Thank you.
I am somebody who's benefited from all these wonderful things people are talking about. I've gone from being very heavily medicated to being off all medication. Somebody who's benefited from working in services and, you know, living a totally different life to the one I had previously. And as Judith aligned to earlier, it took me 5 years and selling nearly 100 photos, 100 pictures before I called myself an artist. So yes, I agree with everything that's been said previously. I just want to mention the Social Prescribing Network. We've already aligned to the Academy and National Centre for Creative Health, but the Social Prescribing Network hosts the largest international social prescribing conference. We're doing our 4th one in March next year, where we share best practice, research, knowledge, lots of opportunities to learn from what people are doing locally, nationally and internationally. So if anybody wants any more information on that, please just drop us an email and I'll send the details. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David and Debs, for your fantastic intervention, you know, and I think it's so, you know, I have that speaking for itself, you know, specifically the figure you have been able to show with us, you know, and how art is absolutely critical, specifically in the support of social prescribing services, you know, and we need to develop that more, and it is for this reason we have as well this webinar together. And thank you again for that. And now I would like to give the floor to Laurence, you know, and to know more about your experience, Laurence. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you for including me in this wonderful group. It's very energizing and I'd say, and very emotionally effective as well. I'm speaking from the perspective of the Canadian Network for Arts and Learning, because we've become very deeply committed to the cause of arts for well-being. And so I'll just very quickly, because I'm aware that there are other people who want to speak as well, just to go over some of the things that we're, how our work touches on the themes of today. The first theme about global mapping and monitoring of the most relevant work. We have created, with thanks to some very important grant money we've received, we've been able to create a digital map of arts and learning across Canada. And we have close to 10,000 entries in it. Each entry is a person with or an organization with a profile, and it helps artists and educators to find one another, and it helps members of the public to find arts education work, arts and learning work in the community or in schools that they're interested in. So that map could become possibly, I know there are other maps and important maps, but this map or one like it, it could be a model for, or even the basis for a global map. I think it would be amazing to have a global map of arts education related to health and well-being. I think that would be incredible. It takes money, but we have a setup that would allow us to do it. Then we have this contribution to scaling up and implementing this movement. And we have in Canada, and thanks, Judith. Judith is a founding member of this, of what is an alliance or a group of collaborators who organizations from across the country who are going to be advocating for arts and have started already advocating for arts for well-being. We have a steering group or leadership group of 15 organizations. And these organizations are going to be reaching out to more organizations as it goes along. There's a sense of urgency here that arts and learning, arts education, will be neglected in the post-pandemic era because of school systems wanting to catch up on math and science, which is very important. Very important. I'm not saying it's not important, but the well-being of the young people is crucially important. And the arts, and we've written to every minister of education across our country, and with the imprimatur of a number of our groups, to remind them that they have, hiding in plain sight, a very important tool they can use for the well-being of their students. Because although everyone is aware that of the damage that has been done to the well-being of young people, there are not enough counselors to go around to every young person in the world. So we have to, but the arts are very effective at promoting well-being and social integration. And then another point I'd like to make is about the compilation of work. And we in our organization, we compiled a lot of helpful material during the pandemic, well, still the pandemic, but we have been collecting material to help arts and learning professionals to, good to hear that, thank you. Health and well-being professionals to, no, I've lost my train of thought because I had sort of a point, but I wanted to point out that we have a conference coming up in which the arts for well-being is the principal theme. Oh, I know. I was saying that we have materials to help people with digital, moving their work onto a virtual platform, and we've done a lot of that, and we have that kind of material. But I think we're feeling swamped by the wonderful, wonderful material that's coming in about health and well-being through the arts. And so, yes, if someone we could do it if we had the resources, but if someone could begin a central repository for this work, it would be very, very helpful. So I want to mention the conference because the conference is on the theme of arts and well-being. It's coming up the 28th and 29th of October, and I do hope that we get some or all of the wonderful stories. This is an incredible group to contribute, and this conference is going to be virtual. We've had to change from our previous idea. It'll be virtual. It'll be possible, and it's possible for each of us to provide a short video, a description of our work that will be part of the conference. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure of that. And it's if you want to learn more about what we're doing, it's eduarts.ca, eduarts.ca. I'll put it in the chat box. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to just say a few words about how important we think it is and how we're trying to bring people together around this topic. It's very exciting and as I say, slightly overwhelming, but in a good way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laurence. And we would like, for sure to discover more about the digital map you have mentioned, and it would be very good, effectively, to consider that for a global level as well. And now I would like to give the floor to Claudio. Thank you so much, Claudio, to be with us today. And the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thanks, Isabel, and thanks all the colleagues here for this great webinar. It's always good to be sharing thoughts with people all over the world about the importance of arts. I'll be very brief because I know we're running almost out of time. But it was very, very important to hear Larry and some other colleagues from Radical Connection, Fleury, talks about the importance of arts education. Because as we know, all the students, at least here in Brazil, they have to spend at least 1 hour per week having art classes. And I think it's a great opportunity as we teach arts to these kids to develop, mental health as well. And we know we've been feeling through the pandemics that there's a huge influence on art classes, you know, in the health, the good health of children. I don't know if everyone is aware, but we are the Art at School Institute here in Brazil. We run a network of 33 universities all over Brazil to deliver art teachers training. Last year in 2020, we broke our record. We trained 58,000 teachers in 1 year. Brazil has, according to the Ministry of Education, 570,000 art teachers in the classrooms. And in 2020, we broke our record. This is a very important number for us. And that means that our teachers are also seeking for help. And if our teachers are seeking for help, we know that students are also seeking for help. And there's a huge role for us to play in terms of better training our teachers so that they can deliver better classes and in the end help students to reach a good, to improve their health. We ran a quick survey in our 33 universities that are part of our network. And we found out there are 4 universities that are very interested in developing research alongside with us. And we have invited them to be here. Unfortunately, we don't have time for all of them to speak, but I would like to acknowledge the presence of Professor Anderson Paiva from the Federal University of Roraima in the north of Brazil, who is running some research on this theme. Also, Professor Janine Pacheco from Vila Velha, Espírito Santo, which is in the southeast of Brazil, and also Professor Tarsila Costa from the University of the State of São Paulo in Bauru, the city right close to São Paulo city here in Brazil. So this is what we're trying to do. We are running a research by the end of this year, at the end of our training, and we would like to incorporate questions, incorporate data, hard data, to support us in this network here in partnership with the World Health Organization. And we would like to collaborate with all of you in terms of what type of data can we gather from schools. Because while kids are in schools, we can have information on their health and how they are feeling, the effects of the pandemics in their day-to-day lives. So our contribution to this network, I think it's in relation to gathering data from students and from teachers on what they think about the impacts of arts education in their classrooms. And I'm looking forward to develop this project alongside with all of you guys. So thanks very much for the invitation. And we're here to support, to help, and to share data in the after the research we want to conduct by the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudio, and that demonstrates how we have so many resources in our hand all together, and definitively we will be able to put all these key resources, you know, in one resource, and we will be able to share, you know, broadly around of us. And now I would like to give the floor to Lefteris, you know, and thank you so much for your presence with us today. Thank you. Your mic is off. You are probably on mute. You know, you have one bar, you know, and you can see.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
hear
you.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you so much, Isabel and Gareth, for the invitation. It's fantastic to be among you with this great group. I'll be very short because I know that everybody has to present. So in order for us to have art, we have to have education, and we covered I don't think we're living in quite a challenging time right now. So I'm just going to talk briefly about these challenges that we're facing. So my name is Lefteris. I've been drawing for a long time, and I also used to be a musician. Currently, I'm a designer, I'm an educator, and a podcaster. So just some context, we're going to speak today about visual art and design education. So again, to bring the context, this is a map of the art and design colleges and universities around the world. And so what I will say is referring more or less to all of them in a greater or lesser degree. So we're just going to ask them the questions so we can get the answers together. I'm not here to give you necessarily answers. Over 10 years ago, I started a reflexive research on art and design education that was aiming to improve the curriculum. So I realized that we need a conversation, and the conversation has to be between the university, the students, and the industry, because at one point or another, these areas are disjointed. And it seems that in each of these areas, there are misunderstandings. So after quite a long time, I consolidated this into a design education forum. It was a physical one in 2019, which brought practitioners and educators that are passionate about art and design education. And also, I created a Design Education Talks podcast, which again is now 54 episodes on that subject. And so you can find that as well. That is available on quite a bit of platforms. And at the same time, there's Designer Talks podcast, again, that talks about design and designers. So basically, our best thinking from 5 years ago is our baggage today. This is a quote by Daniel Priestley, which I really, really like. And it just shows that how we have to look and reevaluate things afresh. And so really, the exploration has happened in the three stages. And of course, I want to say to all of those that were talked about primary, is that all the challenges of higher education are to be found in primary, in the early years. So early years, I cannot stress how important it is, but my expertise is in higher education. So really about the student journey, about the preparation, so also before higher education, during, and in employment. So this is a very important area of exploration. And of course, in visual communication arts, things are becoming merged, and we have to also look at that and see how we can also maintain specialism as well as maintain individual subjects. So I think that, especially during the past couple of years, it seems that instead of giving students more, we have given less. And one area to look at is contact time and contact in general, support, especially now with the mixed, the blended online and offline. How can we best support? Again, how can we reevaluate the student journey? How can the industry, how can we support aspiring artists and designers? And again, the direction is very important. How can we support this? Also, after the education journey, how can we look at online or offline apprenticeships in general? I'd also like to invite everyone to the current Art and Design Education Forum happening on the 11th and 12th of November of this year. So you're most welcome. We're still looking for participation, so feel free to contact me. And I'd like to end with the quote, "The greatest gift of education is to give the freedom to the students to be themselves." Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Thank you so much, Lefteris, for this key intervention and this key question, you have addressed with us. And Now we will give the floor to Tarsila. And thank you so much to be with us, today. The floor is yours. So thank
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. My presentation will be fast due to time. I'm from the visual art field with PhD in the health area, in which I researched the intersection between art and health. Currently, I'm a professor in the visual arts course at U State of São Paulo University, UNESP, which is located in Bauru, a large city in the countryside of São Paulo state. I've been researching the relationship between art and health, focusing on the creative process itself, and art education environments as those that make it possible to produce healthcare. When these environments are established with horizontality and welcoming to potentiate the singularity in artistic production. As far as the creative process is concerned, I have founded my studies on the work of an author called Feigl Strover, whose approach proposes the notion of perception, internal organization, and creation. Concerned to art education, I have based my thoughts on the Professor Robert Ott, who proposes the image watching, besides two important Brazilian authors, Ana May Barbosa and Paulo Freire. Ana May Barbosa proposed the triangular approach that consists in three main streams: to see, to contextualize, and to make art. Paulo Freire has been a very significant educator who highlighted the importance of dialogue and the process of education and played a great role in understanding education through a critical perspective. Furthermore, nowadays I have conducted a model study along with a student about healthcare production, which involves the participants of art at school that take place here in Bauru. This was a model as a student. We have just finished it. I taught a class in which we overlook the individual and collective possibilities of healthcare production. Then we just asked the participants how they perceive the art at school activities and its relation with healthcare production, considering the actual context of the pandemic. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tarsila, for to explain to us, what you are doing, and specifically, we are eager to know more about the study you have mentioning now. And now I will give you the floor to Janine. Thank you so much to be with us today, and we are very happy to hear you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone. Good morning. It's an honor to be here. I'm very excited. Thanks, Art at School Institute and World Health Organization for this opportunity. This is the first time I ever give an oral presentation in another language, so please forgive my experience. My name is Janine Pacheco Moreira Barbosa, licentiate in Artistic Education, specializing in psychodrama, Master in Collective Health, and I'm PhD candidate in Collective Health at the Center for Health Science at the Federal University of Espírito Santo, Brazil. The Polo Arte na Escola has been in Espírito Santo for 12 years, and since 2013 is an university extension project in a private institution named Faculdade Novo Milênio, and have greatly contributed to our formation in art. I have experience in teaching music, theater, storytelling, and human resources consultancy. I wrote and acted in a play called Retrato de Mulher for more than 10 years. Once at the end of a presentation, a lady about 80 years old came to me, grabbed my hands, and said, "You have just told my story." During this play, I realized that art has a power to multiply meanings about violence against women. Then I sought to approach health to deepen these understandings. I proposed a project to apply for a master's degree in public health with professionals who work with women in situations of domestic violence. We published a book about it. The interdisciplinary work between the fields of art, philosophy, and health allows the creation of new possibilities to communicate the results of research in the field of health, making knowledge more accessible to the entire population. Nowadays, I am a professor in research of collective health at the Federal University of Espírito Santo. Collective health is similar to public health. It emerged in Brazil from the need to care for health from an integral perspective. It is an interdisciplinary field that welcomes professionals from several areas of knowledge. That's why I'm there. In my work, I use artistic devices to promote healthcare, especially role play, narratives, and storytelling. I conduct research to promote gender equality, particularly with women in situations of violence. Once, Hannah Arendt said that all pain can be supported if about it you can be able to tell a story. Then I believe that sensitivity and artistic creation are privileged tools for healthy production in our times, because health practices are always cultural aspects of our society. Thus, the relationship between culture, art, and health constitutes a broad and diverse field, which may have multiple resonances for population health, well-being, and prevention, fostering the potential of life, and most important, welcome different forms of existence. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, Janine. And I think we have done fantastic tour, in fact, today about all this art initiative and program existing over the world, and it is so rich and it is so important, in fact, to be able to amplify and to give the voice to all of the people over the world, are able effectively to use art, to support health and well-being. And it is a fantastic opportunity, first to start this process together, but as well to amplify this process. And I would like to encourage all of you to connect with as well. Some people are interested, to join, in fact, what we are doing. And from this exchange, I think we have been able to be agree about the fact we will continue to compile all together, all the resources, are very relevant, and like that we can display all these resources in very, I would say, coherent format, and produce maybe a report, a joint report, to describe, very well the benefit of art in health and well-being, but as well all the current, methods related to health sector or education sector, and we have seen today how they are linked to each other, and it was as well very well mentioned, during the webinar, the importance to consider social determinants of health, and specifically art is a key determinant by itself to address this holistic perspective of health and well-being. And I would like to thank you again, and I think it's just the beginning, of this process together, and we can really make the difference, because what you are doing is in action, is very concrete, and all the resources you have already developed, can be definitively more accessible to all the people in the world at international level. And I am very happy we are able to set up today this international, global community, about this topic. And thank you so much to all of you again, and thank you so much, Gareth, for the preparation of this webinar together and to make that possible, as a big consortium of partners today to value art and the impact of art, not just on health, but as well to cover all the sustainable development goals. And maybe you want to say a final word, Gareth. I give you the floor. Thank you so much to all.
Thanks, Isabel. No, I would just like to say thanks to all the viewers, thanks to our speakers, thanks to everyone who's joined and participated in today's webinar. Further information is available on the WHO's website, our website, WIS.world, and also the Global Social Prescribing Alliance website, which has been shown throughout the webinar. So from ourselves here, we wish everyone a great weekend, and we look forward to working with everyone in the future, and also to look at the opportunities that the arts bring to support people's health and well-being. And I would like to think that, COVID, rather than we see retention or retrenching in terms of budgetary constraints, that we would see money flow into the arts, because this is a great opportunity to create new and meaningful jobs at scale, and also demonstrate the value that can be created by keeping people fit and well. So let's work together, let's collaborate, let's co-create, and let's build for the future. So thanks for joining us, and we'll close the webinar. Thanks, everyone.